In this section, I want to talk a little bit about interstate relations. In other words, why states make interstate compacts, the purpose of the full faith and credit clause, Article 4, Section 1 of the Constitution, a little on extradition, and the purpose of the privileges and immunities clause of the Constitution. The interstate relations notes are right here in classroom, or if you're watching this at a different time, you may have them differently. This is what you need to make a copy of and complete. As you're looking at this, you can stop and play it as necessary. So to talk about interstate relations, let's look at some definitions. I'm going to hide myself here because I'm in the way. An interstate compact is an agreement between two or more states. Why would they form these compacts, these agreements, achieving together what one state might have difficulty doing alone? In the first 100 years, there wasn't many of them. Now there are extensive amounts of them, and they've grown over time. A good example is the Port Authority of New Jersey and New York. The tunnels, the bridges that connect New Jersey and New York along the Hudson and East Rivers, the Hudson River, those and the ports that each of them have, those are shared between them, and there's an authority that oversees them. These are different ideas between the states. Like the states all have a compact to supervise parolees and probationers, and compact and juveniles. So one state cannot do this alone. Like, obviously the probationers go everywhere. And so they need a way to keep track of them. Full faith and credit, Article 4, Section 1. That full faith and credit shall be given to each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings. The public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. So each state must respect and recognize the validity of each other's records, court decisions, and so on. If you're a permanent resident, and when I say permanent resident of one state, if you say get a divorce in one state and that state recognizes that divorce, you're divorced in every other state. Now, there's been some court decisions where people have tried to go to other states and move there briefly and then go back to their other state for the purpose of getting a quickie divorce. The Supreme Court has said those cannot be recognized. You have to intend to live in that state. Every state has a little bit different divorce laws. But once a state has granted it, and legally, if you move to another state, you're recognized as being divorced or married in another state as well. I guess it would work both ways, actually. The same thing with judicial proceedings and child care custody arrangements and so on. So if you're awarded money in one state and you try to escape the damage, move to another state, the courts that could be asked in that state to enforce the fines and the damage award. It all works the same. Each states do work with each other, and the other place they work with each other that I used to have notes on was extradition. Extradition for about 100 years, states. There was a decision that the states could, that the Constitution did not give the federal government any power to compel a governor to act in an extradition case. And extradition is moving a fugitive or a fugitive from one state to another. But the court overturned that and said that the federal courts can indeed order an unwilling governor to extradite a fugitive. Usually that's a pretty common procedure nowadays, extradition, where if you are wanted in one state and you're arrested in that state, say Florida, and you're wanted in Michigan on charges, they'll extradite you back to Michigan to stand trial or to hear those charges. Same is true if you're serving a prison sentence. Your prison sentence is finished in one state. If you still owe somebody a prison sentence in another state, they'll extradite you to that state. And that recently happened to Michigan with a case with Rick Wershey. You may have heard of White Rick. That recently happened. He had finished serving his Florida sentence. Privileges and immunities. I'm going to move this down so we can see this. So privileges and immunities. No state can draw unreasonable distinction between its own residents and people who live in other states. You can't. Each state must recognize the right of Americans to travel and become a resident of that state. Okay, so we allow pretty free movement between the states. We don't discriminate. You could cross borders of states, the pandemic not included, fairly easily in non-emergency times. So now there's examples where there's reasonable discrimination a state may exercise against a citizen of another state. For example, in colleges and universities can charge a higher tuition rate for a state university. University of Michigan, Michigan State, the directional universities, Eastern, Western, Central, all do this. If you're a non-resident of the state of Michigan, you're charged more because you don't pay taxes, because taxpayer money is used in part to fund the taxpayer money is used in part to fund those universities, and therefore, if you're a resident, your parents or whatever or you are a tax-paying resident of Michigan, it stands to reason that you get the tuition cheaper. Non-residents can be charged higher hunting and fishing licenses. For people like in Michigan who want to come here to hunt and fish, live in Ohio, they may be charged higher rates. So again, the idea is that the states work together and are acting as a united, well, not to use the cliche, acting as a United States. We don't treat our 50 states as separate countries. We have the Constitution has certain provisions that require them, privileges and immunities, full faith and credit clause, interstate compacts, that they're supposed to work together, even though they are separate entities. They work together as an umbrella under the national government.